Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. Wa nashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu. ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمد عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabi wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi salihin. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers. So alhamdulillah, like Brother Ustādh Abid was mentioning about the adabs, I can see that yourselves, mashallah, took that on board, and it's beautiful, nice semicircle to see. And what we're going to start this bayan off from is the aspect of the shaitan, dunya and the nafs. It's not that they ever win, because they can never win, because shaitan is in a lose-lose situation regardless of what the outcome of anything. His outcome or his result, you may say, is that he is going to lose regardless. The only thing is, what we have control over is if we let them. So we can either win or we lose. And the power that the human being has been given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very unique and special in that regard. So what's mentioned in the Quran as well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to even the angels that bow down to Hazrat Adam al-Islam, meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing you could say, the superiority of the human being, and even in regards to the malaika, because everyone sees that malaika are very powerful creation, very pious, which they are as well. But Allah is showing that the best of creation is human beings. So in regards to that, the reality is that we can only lose if we let ourselves lose. And we are in full control if we want to win. That's the reality of the whole, you could say, of the best of creation, human beings. And where we sometimes go wrong, I'm talking about myself here, is sometimes we say there's a lot of evil out there, which there's no doubt. Obviously there's a lot of evil out there, and it's very hard, and I can't do this, shaitan, I'm up against the shaitan, I'm up against the nafs, I'm up against, other people. Yes, that's true. But the reality is, like I mentioned before, that we have the full power and the control to win. And similarly, if we give in to, you can say other creation, like the inferior creations, there's animals, there's addictions out there like drugs and alcohol and these things. It's not that they overtake us, it's that we let them overtake us. So yes, there is evil out there, but the goodness supersedes this. So there's greater goodness. So for every evil that there is out there, there's a greater good. So how does that manifest or come, you could say, is for us to follow, is that, for example, if there's shaitan, then there's the Prophet ﷺ for us to follow. If there's false gods and the nafs and these things, then obviously we have the true God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who we follow, and we have that guidance there. Similarly, if there's army of devils, then there's army of Allah's friends, or there's the army of, you could say, so dunyavi models, then there's the awliya, who are the spiritual models for us to follow. If there's any kind of textures or written misguidance, then again we have the Quran as a guidance for us to follow. And if there's wealth of dunya, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned about the wealth of the akhirah and how vast that is. And then similarly, if there's distractions in terms of women of dunya, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned about the hurs of Jannah, of paradise. So the reality is, like, the point that I'm trying to make is we've got control, and it's who we side with. So the full control really lies within us. So the problem of evil existing is true. There is evil out there, but the control that Allah has given us and this special power is very unique, in the sense that we have this willpower that we can overcome pretty much anything, that if we ask for the help of Allah and apply the conditions of mujahidah, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will deliver us from this. Now, so what does it come back down to? The choices that we make. So the choices that we make, the Mashaykh give an example of a person who's you could say on drugs, or whatever type of person is the drug person in this example, that even if he was to go to another town or any other place new to him, he would find someone of his similar understanding, meaning he'd find another druggie and he'd find out where or whatever he needs to know about that certain act. And that's the reality as well. And if you think about it, actually that is the truth as well, that whatever type of person the person is, whether they go to another country, they will find that person who is similar to them or can help them with whatever their need or wish or purpose is. Wherever you put them, even if you put in between them a language barrier, they will still find a way to communicate and get their point across and get what they want. So using this, the Mashaykh, they give the example of the honeybee, and they mention that the honeybee is such that it travels, if it comes into a garden or piece of land and there's a lot of dirt there, or you could say gutters and unclean places, what it will do, it will some way or another find, if there's only one flower in that garden, to go and rest on, and whatever its need is, it will find that clean place to do whatever it needs to do. Vice versa, we have the fly, that he could be in a garden of flowers, but regardless of how many flowers there are, he will find a way to find some dirt there. So there is evil out there, but we have this choice. And if we want to find the flowers, so we're in this land, this dunya, this garden, if we want to find the flowers, we can find the flowers and we can connect with them and we can benefit. But that's a choice that we make. So this notion, or basically deception from the shaitan, that there's evil out there and it's hard for me. Yes, it is hard, but it's not, like I said, you have this ability. It's really your own choices, my own choices, that are placing us in the situations that we're in. So we really need to stop and hold ourselves accountable and stop the blame game, because the reality is, yes, there is bad out there, but shaitan, he's been given certain, you could say, powers from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he's going to be here till the day of judgment. But that's why he's going to be here. But we cannot use that as an excuse to stop us from reaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the Mashaykh mentioned about the flowers and how a person is a honeybee. So going off this, they mentioned the example of a person being purified. And if a person purifies himself, like the whole point of this, what we mentioned in there is negative or evil or darkness or influences from the evil that overcome a person. We're saying that there's a lot out there. I'm talking about myself. We said these are the excuses. But the Mashaykh is saying, if we purify ourselves, then what will happen is we will become the influences. So if we can purify ourselves, wherever we go, the environment that we go into, we'll have an influence on that environment, where that environment will start to change for the better. The shayateen will fear us. The evil forces that will fear us if we can purify ourselves. The same issues that we're facing now, that we may struggle with, the reality is that we will overcome them inwardly and outwardly. But this all comes from a person purifying themselves. And this is something that a person, obviously I can see, mashallah, there's a lot of brothers here that are already doing this course, that this is what the course of self-purification teaches as well, a person how to purify themselves. So like we just mentioned about the purified people, and one of the awliya who had purified themselves, who had reached this level of purification, were one of the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What they used to do was they used to never eat with their index finger. So whenever they would eat, they'd always use the other hand, other aspects of the hand, or the fingers, but they'd never use the index finger. Now the Marids used to see this, but they never used to ask, because it's against adab to ask your teacher or your sheikh any of their personal matters, or any of your Ustādh, their personal matters, or even their spiritual matters in that regard. It's against adab. So they never used to ask, but a lot of time went past and a lot of time went by, and they never, like I said, never questioned this. But then one day, another saintly person came and sat with them, and whilst they were eating, they asked this question. They said, "Oh, Ya Sayyidi, Ya Sheikh, or Sheikh Saab, we need to ask a question." And they said, "Yeah." Said, "Why is it that yourself don't use this finger?" So they said, "Now that you've asked, we'll tell you." So they mentioned that what it is, we was in a state of a vision. So a vision meaning that they was seeing things from a different dimension, like a person, for example, has a dream and stuff like this. He can see things from a different dimension. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens these things up for His awliya, and they can see through different dimensions. And so they were seeing from another dimension. So their eye had opened and they could see from this dimension. And what they saw was a jungle. So they said that we seen this jungle, and we was in this jungle. And as we were, in the jungle, we seen hundreds and hundreds, thousands of people gathering. So we were like, where's this gathering that's taking place? Thousands and hundreds of thousands of people gathering. So they said we got closer and closer, and then we seen in the middle of this gathering, right in the middle of this gathering, there's this beautiful woman, and every single person around is trying to get her attention. So one person is doing some, they were saying trickery, some people are trying different things, so many different techniques to get the attention of this woman. So they said that as we got closer and closer, and we looked, and we realized that this is a woman, and we thought immediately that no, we shouldn't be here, this is a na-mahram, we don't want to be here. So they started to retreat and make their way backwards, whilst hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people are all surrounding, just doing everything they can just to get this attention from this woman. So they go, as we turned around and made our way out of this circle and this majma, what happened? They go, a very strange situation took place. They go, what happened? That woman now stood up and came towards us. So they said this confused us as to meaning they were like, why has this happened? Like everyone's surrounding this person, and she's got up and she's coming towards us. So they started walking fast. Then obviously this woman started walking fast behind them as well. So then they started running towards their hujra. As they reached their hujra, so they ran towards the hujra and they got inside quickly and they closed the door and they locked the door. But through some space or a hole or some kind of vacuum, this woman made her way in. So then once they're in the house now, or in the hujra, they got very angry. So they said, how dare you come into our space, into our property, and who are you? And you're a woman as well, and you've come in, you should know, how dare you? And said, I am not a woman. Said, I am dunya. And she said, all those that you see that were basically around me are all my lovers, but you are the lover of Allah. So basically what the dunya did, it mentioned the promise that he made with Allah. So then this beautiful woman, or this dunya, so once he told who she was, said, I am dunya. She said that before I came onto this face of the earth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed me to worship under His arsh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to worship Allah for 1,000 years. So he said that I have worshipped Allah for 1,000 years before I came onto the face of the earth. And before I was sent onto the earth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to me, okay, dunya, when you go on the face of the earth, what will you do? And dunya replied, Ya Allah, the ones who serve you, love you, and make you their purpose, I will serve them. And those who love me and make me their purpose, dunya said, I will ruin them, destroy them, destruction upon them from me. So he said, you are one of the people who are the lovers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I am here for that reason, to serve you, because I've made this promise with Allah. So they said, no, we don't care, you know what? And they basically pushed dunya out of their house. But whilst they were doing it, this finger of theirs touched dunya. So because of that, because this finger touched dunya, they basically, dunya went outside and sat outside the house in obedience and said, you don't want me, but because I've made this promise to Allah, I'm going to sit outside your house now, and whatever your needs are, I'm going to make sure they get fulfilled. You don't want me, I know you don't, but I still will be outside and I will fulfill your needs. So then they said to the other sheikh, so that's the reason why we do not use this finger, because it came in contact and touched dunya as such. So that's why we don't really use this finger. So alhamdulillah, from this awliya, their vision, there's many lessons, but one of the lessons that we take from this, there's many, but one of them is that really, no matter how much you sacrifice for dunya, these people, day and night, politicians, witch doctors, astrologists, all of them, they put in so much effort in, but the reality is, just in that vision, you can imagine that the whole circle or majma around dunya, and she's not even paying attention. Hazrat Isa alayhi salam actually summarized this, and they said that they referred to her as a she as well, and said she has killed everyone. She has killed everyone, meaning that even anybody that wanted her or even thought that they had or got, they died in the end. Such big kings, that the reality is, if we go back 600 years now, from now 700 years, we live better than the kings of those times. Meaning the level of food and our living standards are higher than the kings of those times. So we should be in shukr. But anyway, going back to the point that these great kings owning, having so much authority, so much power, buried 6 feet under with nothing. And even if the ones who did take what they can, some buried their gold with them, didn't they? It's just sat there. Then someone comes out and they digged it and took the gold, and then what could they do? They couldn't do nothing with it. So even what they took with them took out, it's just there, of no use to them. There's no value. It can't help them. So that's why Hazrat Isa alayhi salam said she killed everyone. So anyone who's submitted to dunya, in reality, they're in big loss. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran has challenged the atheists and the disbelievers, because what they say is that they say there's no God, they believe in other things, or disbelief, don't they? So one of the challenges from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to them, that okay, if this is not the truth, and the Prophet ﷺ, this is not the truth, then when that spirit, or when you're on your deathbed and that spirit reaches your throat, if you are of the people of the truth, send it back. Meaning, keep yourself alive for one more second. It's impossible. So anyone who denies Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, anyone who goes to any kind of doubts, that's the challenge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the open challenge, that if that you believe that this is not the truth, then my challenge to you is that when it reaches, your spirit reaches, your soul reaches your throat, if you are truthful, send it back. I mean, live for 1,000 years then, isn't it? But no one can. That's why dunya has killed everyone. Whoever has submitted, meaning it's done its promise with Allah. It served its promise. It said that whoever worships or loves me, I will destroy that person. And that's what it's done as well. And then secondly, the second lesson that we take from this is, even dunya worshipped Allah for 1,000 years, and in the end the result was that it basically said it's in service to us now. So it said that, meaning this is the level that Allah has given us, isn't it? It's a rutbah, isn't it? That creation who's been created really is worshipping Allah but serving us if we submit to Allah. How much honor is in that by submitting to Allah, that all these creations, they serve you, the sun, the dunya, all the things that we see, the stars, Allah says that it's decoration for us. So it's a great honor in that. So then it comes to a point where a person now, he might or she might think, okay, this what you're mentioning is true, but what if I've got this love, this poison in my heart? Because the reality is it's a poison. So it's not about having dunya, it's about having this love for dunya. So how does a person get this poison out of their heart? So that's why our mashayikh, they mentioned that the reality is that we don't take the person out of the dunya, we take the dunya out of their heart. So whilst living, carrying on doing what they're doing, we take the dunya out of their heart. So there's a full example for Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam. They had the whole kingdom of the whole earth and beyond what we can even think. Allah SWT gave them every kingdom. Sayyidina Abdul Qadir al-Jilani rahimullah, whole spark, great awliya, great businessman, such big tajara, great businessman. But the point what I'm trying to make is that they didn't have this dunya in their heart. And so this is something that a person, we need to think, how do I do this? And that's mentioned in the the tariq and stuff like this. It teaches a person how to remove this. So if a person has this illness, then what he and she should do is work a way out on how to remove this as well. So another thing that I want to go through, the same awliya Allah, they mentioned that if a person puts 5 walls of protection up, then this person is protected from ghafla. Ghafla is basically heedlessness. So heedlessness is, you could say, it's being absent. Yeah? So being absent is being separated. It's being absent, separated, and it leads to destruction. So the opposite of absent is presence, isn't it? And separation is connection. And then the opposite of destruction is establishment, isn't it? So what we're going to quickly go through the 5 points of how to build the walls to protect against heedlessness. Because where the presence of Allah SWT stops is where heedlessness starts. So whenever me and you out of this presence, that's when heedlessness has started. And then that means you're absent, you're going to you're going to separate from Allah, and you're going to destroy yourself. These 3 things are going to inevitable now if a person's in heedlessness. So how do you protect this? So the first thing that the mashayikh mentioned, that is a person should have halal rizq. So halal rizq, you must be earning a livelihood and keeping yourself busy, occupied in that, attaining halal rizq, but being content at the same time. So whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you, as long as you're putting in the effort, whatever Allah has given you, you have to be content with it. Because if we don't become content, or we don't be content, then discontentment settles. And discontentment, what happens with discontentment, it can lead to a couple of things. One is, because you're discontent, or because I'm discontent, it might lead me to earning haram. So because I want to earn more, I might adopt the means of haram rizq, thinking I'll adopt haram. Secondly, it can adopt to a person, can start to neglect the deen in pursuit of dunya. So meaning I need to work more, I need to do this more, and slowly, whatever farais and other good work of deen that he was doing, he starts to now basically neglect that. So halal rizq with contentment is one wall. So this wall is wall of protection. This is going to protect you and me now from the infiltrators, from shaitan, from nafs, all these evil that is out there. This is one wall that we put up. Now the second wall that the Mashaykh mentioned is that the person needs to remember death often. So much so that it's like a visitor. So he remembers it like a guest. So the good the example that the Mashaykh and the Ustādh give is like death is waiting in your guest room. So guest room is what we'd call the front room. When people come over, we're all, especially in Nelson, it'll be the same as Bolton, wasn't it? Where the front room is the main room where the men sit, and the living room is probably where the women sit. Same like that. So if me and you are sat in the men's room and we've got a guest, and you sat with him and you're entertaining him as you would with the guest, and then you're serving food, etc. And then you say, right, I'm just going to nip to the bathroom, or I'm just going to go upstairs, or I'll be back. And you go and you forget that you've got a guest. It's not going to happen. You won't, will you? That's the level of, we got to have belief that this guest is with me. Malikul Maut. That he is with me. I mean that he is sat in that waiting room, in that guest room, And we need to drill that to that point where we like that, have that understanding. So the second thing is to remember death as though like a guest is waiting for you and he's there. And it's just a matter of time where he says, my time, with you, with this visit is over, and you're coming with me. So a person should have that. The third, so that's the second wall. Now the third wall that is mentioned is that understanding and knowing that the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are certain rights of Allah that only I can fulfill, meaning that no one else can fulfill them. No prophet, no wali, no one can do them. You have to do them, I have to do them. Namely, what is this? For example, in regards to the Aqidah, a person's belief. To believe in Allah, it has to be you. To pray salah, it has to be you. To do hajj, if you have the means, it has to be you. So what I'm trying to say is, there's certain rights, understanding and knowing that these rights, that they can only be fulfilled by me. So then that kind of, removes any of this, doubt that, oh, it's okay, I'll be fine, or somebody else will do this for me. No, you know that I have to act on this and I have to do these. So that's the third wall of protection. Now, the fourth wall of protection that is mentioned is the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That a person should live in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is with me, watching me and hearing me. And this is a very powerful one as well, because like we mentioned, is that if I remember rightly, I heard one time the Mashaykh mentioned that, like I said before as well, that ghafla actually starts there. Where the presence of Allah stops, ghaflat starts. So if you want to know, am I in ghaflat, am I not? Were you in the presence of Allah, were you not? If you were not, that means at that point you were absent, disconnected, and you could have led to destruction. So them three things, I remember very clearly, like once the Imam Qais mentioned these, he said that absent, separation, and then leads to destruction. It's a literal meaning of it as well. So that's why a person, the presence of Allah, where the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stops is where ghafla starts. So a person is literally like, just the example you could take from this is that you're driving on the motorway 70, 80 miles per hour, whatever it is, 70 miles per hour, sorry, and you're driving and all of a sudden you fall asleep. At that point you can do some real big damage to yourself and others as well. Not just yourself, others as well. So that's the example. So this is the fourth wall. So now we've gone through one. Now we're going to go through the fifth wall. The fifth wall of protection is a person realizes that with every breath that I am taking, my life is diminishing, is lessening. I'm getting closer and closer and closer to death. Meaning I am decreasing with every breath, whether that's sleeping, eating, walking, talking, working, you have to breathe. So with each breath, with each moment, you're diminishing. You can imagine yourself like a battery, for example, but you ain't got no charge. Whatever the full battery was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had written for me and you was that from day one. Now each day, or each second is diminishing. Now when it's going to finish, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, but eventually it's just going to go dead. So with each breath, know that I am diminishing. That's the fifth wall of protection against heedlessness, which makes us aware of heedlessness as well. So the Mashaykh mentioned that these 5 amals are such that they need to be practiced like a muraqabah, meaning that so a person really should try his best to remember the 5, and then the way that's taught to us as well is 30 days. You can basically, a person can write these 5 down on the phone or different techniques, whatever it is, but for 30 days try to really embed this in your mind. So then to some extent, when you, even if you don't look at it every day, then you would have picked up a mindset, a state of mind and heart with it, and would be able to inshallah run with it after that. Because even if one of them are missing, they said there's a great danger. It's just like if there's these 4 or 5 walls, we're here right now, 2, 1, 2 there, 5. If one of these walls wasn't here now, it'd be cold outside. All this would come in. When it rained, the whole carpet, everything would start to deteriorate, and mold would come in. It wouldn't be able to sit here. Just a matter of time, isn't it? So even if one of these 5 walls are not in place, so that's why a person should really, like I said, write them down, or whichever techniques that they prefer. Everyone's got their own style of doing things, and implement this or embed this in their mind. Now, but there's always the best way of doing it, and that's why the tariq is the way to build these 5 walls as well. So because the tariq is such a course, that self-purification that's taught, tariqa Muhammadiyah, it doesn't just help you in this world, it helps you in barzakh, it helps you in the day of judgment, it helps you on the bridge of Sirat, it helps you basically forever. So forever, this self-purification is one thing that will come in use for you forever. So that's why a person, we should make sure that we try to, if we don't know this path, find out about this path. And people like myself who we've been with the blessed teacher for a long time, but the seriousness isn't there, and maybe that's an issue. Maybe it's not updating or taking that next step of meeting whoever your mentors are, your Ustādhs, and seeking them and going practically to them and asking them what's your next move, and ask that help from them. So just to summarize what we've explained today, so it was that what is dunya, and that the reality is dunya can't destroy us, evil cannot destroy us, it cannot win over us unless we let it win, unless we choose to lose. But at the same time, we have this special power, willpower, uniqueness, that we can choose to win as well. So it's on us how we use that. Second thing was that what dunya actually said, that it worshipped Allah for 1,000 years, and the reality of behind that is those who are worshipping or chasing it are not going to get it. And the ones who are serving Allah, it will basically, they'll be worshipping Allah, or they'll be chasing the pleasure of Allah, and dunya is chasing them behind. And the other ones, they're chasing dunya, and they're running after dunya, and dunya is running away from them. So this is something that we need to understand. And the third thing was the 5 walls that a person can erect and protect himself and become aware from heedlessness, which were the halal rizq with contentment, remembering death as a guest. There's only certain rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, only me and you can fulfill, no one else can do them for us. The presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that my life is diminishing with each breath. So inshallah, Jazakallah khair for your time, brothers. and there's anything that was mentioned which was good was from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and anything that was evil was obviously from myself. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.